source of water came from the rock. The Hebrews, who had been liberated by God from Egypt, were marching toward Mount Sinai, where they were going to receive God's law. It is interesting to note that the Jews often referred to God's law, the Torah, as the living water. I don't know if you knew that, but that was something I learned as I prepared for this today. The Torah was referred to as the living water because it was seen as nourishment for the soul. And it taught them how to love God and love their neighbor. And through the Torah came life, because it was the way we were meant to live in relationship with God and with neighbor. Yet the people were distracted because they were thirsty. And they complained endlessly about their thirst. So much so that Moses began to cry out to God, "Why me, God? Why have you afflicted me with these people?" I'm sure we've been there before, right? Especially any of us who have taught or have dealt with people who are not really quite willing to go along for the ride, and you're like, why? Right? Especially as it persists. And we know the story of Exodus. They're wandering around this wilderness, ultimately for 40 days and 40 nights, and every step of the way, no matter what miracle they see, no matter what happens, they're complaining, "Why did you bring us out here to die? Just send us back to Egypt where we'd be better off as slaves." So Moses is finally just, "Why me, God? Why me?" Of course, God had Moses strike the rock, and out came flowing water to quench their thirst. Now, I didn't realize this, but as I did research, I learned that sedimentary rock actually can have little pockets in it that will hold condensation. And if you know where to strike a rock, you can actually get water to come out of it. This is a little bit different because some pockets of water didn't come out, but it started gushing with water. In the Gospel of John, a Samaritan woman comes to the second source of water. Comes looking for water at a well. No doubt something she does every day. Unfortunately, they didn't have plumbing in those days, and you couldn't have pumps pumping out water from the well. You had to actually go and draw it. And usually the wells weren't necessarily right within town, but somewhere outside of town that you had to walk to. And they estimate that this well from Sychar was probably like 1.5 or so miles away, or excuse me, not miles, kilometers away from this well. So they would have to walk back and forth. And we actually know a lot about this woman, given these specific details of the story. She's there. Who's she with? Who did she come to the well with, Mike?
Oh, she didn't come with anyone.
Right. She's with Jesus.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So she comes, you're right on both accounts. She comes to the well completely alone, by herself. And what time did she come to the well? Does anybody remember from the story? Maeve? About noon. Now, can you tell me anything about that part of the world around noontime? Hot. Right, the blazing sun. Is this the ideal time to go walking for water? No. She's out there by herself about noon collecting water, when the typical time to go for water would be probably at the start of the day and perhaps at the close of the day. At those times where you're more in shade, the sun isn't fully hot and beating down on your head, because you not only have to lower this jar down to get water, but then you have to carry it back home on your head, and to do that in the scorching sun is not the ideal time. So this woman came there by herself in the middle of the day when the sun was hottest. You see, what this tells us about her is that she was avoiding the other women she would have been traveling with. Why do you think that is?
She was not a good woman.
She is not a good woman, right? She is looked down upon by the community. After all, how many husbands did she have? Harold?
5.
5. And is she married currently?
No.
No, she's living with some guy. I bet you those other women look at her as a husband stealer. What do you think? Among other things. We won't go into the other things, but at the base, she's a threat to them. And she's kind of impure, right? But this woman came to the well looking for water, and instead of just finding water, she found the second part to Mike's question, Mike's answer to the question. She found a Jewish man, whom she probably wanted to avoid even more, right? Because the Jews and the Samaritans were not friendly with one another. They hated each other. And they hated each other over religious reasons. The Jews believed that the Samaritans were unclean from birth. That the second a Samaritan was born, they could defile you if you came into their contact. So you wouldn't even hold a Samaritan baby. If you saw a Samaritan baby lying on the ground, you let it be. This is the disdain they had for one another. They were unclean from birth. And they believed, also, the other thing that's important to recognize is that the Samaritans, though they considered their lineage to come down through Jacob, they were also mixed with Assyrian and other cultures, so the Jews saw them as impure on a whole host of different levels, not only just their spiritual purity. And of course, the Samaritans were worshiping on a mountain rather than having the worship in where the Jews wanted it centered, which was in the temple. And so for those very reasons, the Jews despised the Samaritans, and the Samaritans despised the Jews for equal reasons. They thought the Jews thought they were better than what they are. Oh, they're worshiping at that temple, but here's where our ancestor Jacob worshipped. If it was fine for him, it should be fine for us. So the animosity between the Jews and the Samaritans was intense. So she probably wanted to avoid this Jewish man, even more than she probably wanted to avoid the women. But this was no ordinary man. And she could not, as it turns out, avoid him. Because this Jewish man wasn't going to avoid her. In fact, he was going to engage her. And by the way, men did not typically engage women on their own next to wells. Did you know that wells were a common place for men and women to hook up? I mean, we see it in the Old Testament. Where did Jacob find his wives? At the well. That's right. How about Moses? Where was he when he found his wife? At the well. It's a common place. So for Jesus to be standing at the edge of a well talking to a woman, a Samaritan woman nonetheless, this was scandalous. This was absolutely scandalous. Both of these stories deal with people seeking water to quench their thirst. But their true thirst was unknown to them. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever looked for something but not know what you're truly looking for? And you think it might be this and you get that and it doesn't satisfy the need? Have you ever had an itch, right? Bear with me. Have you ever had an itch and it feels like it's on your arm but it turns out it's down here, but for some reason the itch feels like it's here, and no matter where you scratch on your arm, you can't get it? It's kind of like that. When I was a kid, I was seeking love from all different places. Now, I had it from my parents, of course. But we all know this when you're a kid. Of course, you take it for granted that you have it from your parents, but it's not good enough, right? You want your friends to love you. You want, in my case, if you're, I wanted a girlfriend to love me. I wanted friends to love me. I wanted my teachers to love me. And I would do all sorts of things to try to make that happen. I tried to be the best student I could, but I wasn't quite quick enough at math. And so I wasn't my teacher's favorite. And that made me feel rejected and dejected. I tried to fit in with kids at school. I remember one kid was starting to bully another kid and wanted me to join in with them. I was probably like second or third grade, and I knew that was wrong, so I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And then from that point on, I started getting bullied because I refused to follow the bullies. And then over years and years and years of not fitting into the in-group in school, I started to seek for love elsewhere and acceptance elsewhere. And I started hanging out with kids that would accept me. Some of those kids were rocking and still are to this day. Some of those kids were rocking to me, but they weren't doing the best of things. And what happens when you get into a group of kids that aren't doing the best of things? You start to not do the best of things with them, right? I was seeking for love in all of the places that I thought I could find them. And the more I sought to fill what I was lacking, the more I sought to quench the unknown thirst in me with friends and thrills and things, the emptier I realized I was. Unfortunately, it took me leaving the church, which was a community that loved me, even though I didn't make note of it. I ended up not having the best of relationships as a teenager with my parents. I'm sure all parents are like, yeah, we know what that's about, right? Been there, done that. But I ended up rejecting the love that was around me to find some love that I already had and knew about, but couldn't see because I was looking for something different in all of the wrong places. Like the woman at the well, I too had come at this point of emptiness. I'd come to a Jesus moment. I had a come to Jesus moment, if you will, where I literally broke down and opened up. And like the woman at the well, it was at that moment that the unknown thirst within me was revealed and quenched. Both in the Samaritan woman and in myself, the story didn't just end with a quenching. That's where it began. It didn't just end with a quenching, but with a transformation, followed by a powerful witness. In the Exodus story, they're looking for water to quench their thirst, and they get water to quench their thirst. But what happens a week later? Maybe even a day later? They're thirsty again, right? This woman came looking to be left alone and to collect her water quietly with no one noticing. And what did she find? Living water. This church and all churches are seeking their thirst to be quenched and to be filled. They want to be fed with hope. They want to be filled with a growing congregation. This is not unique to Harmony Hill United Methodist Church. It's actually kind of apt for this sermon that we only have a few people here today, right? This isn't unique to us. This is every church. You go into any church community, and they'll tell you that they struggle with their declining attendance. We want to seek more people. We want to be fed with the hope of a bright future. Yet we seek to quench our thirst with programs, with ads, with money, with having our way on this or that, with doing whatever, to get what exactly? Rather than going to the only source of living water for the church, we seek our living water from all of the things that aren't living. Rather than going to the only source of living water, we run to dried up wells and rock. Jesus Christ, my brothers and sisters, Jesus Christ is the living water. Jesus Christ is the source from which we will find the sustenance we need. Jesus Christ is the source from which we will find growth and life and hope for a future. The challenge for us as a church is to stop seeking to do church as if church is what quenches our thirst. And you hear this all the time. People, I go to church to be fed. I go to church to be fed. And then what do you do with the rest of your week? You've been fed. You go throughout your week, and by Sunday you're needing to be fed again because your week has kind of stunk, or has been long, or you've worked hard, or whatever the case may be. Rather than seeking to do church, we need to stop that. Because church doesn't quench our thirst. It really doesn't. Rather, we need to seek Christ in all that we do. If we're seeking Christ in all that we do, then church will be a place where that grows, where that builds up in somebody, where that gets resourced, where that gets inspired. But if we seek Christ in all that we do, it won't stop here on Sunday morning. It will go out into the world, into the community, and we will enter that community with overflowing cups, overflowing jars of living water. Rather than to seek doing church, we should be seeking Christ in all we do. And we should wholly depend on Him as our source. And be transformed by living waters, also known as the Holy Spirit. Then, and only then, will we be overflowing vessels of the living water. And we will go from being thirsty to thirsty to thirsty to thirsty to aiding Christ in quenching people's thirst. Amen? That's why we're here. We're here because we found the source that quenches our thirst. And we're being called to be vessels of that very water to quench the thirst of others. I pray you accept that challenge. And if you do, Christ will not let you down. Amen?
Amen.